jealousy, and I feel like in any sibling situation there can be jealousy at times, because some siblings, you know, experience other things before you, even though you're the oldest, and I feel like that is definitely the situation with Megara and Psyche. But I feel the difference between me and Megara is that my conflicts were rooted of love, and I think that Megara's are mainly rooted from jealousy.
The show is about loving no matter what your boundaries are. It could be related to interracial relationships or same-sex relationships. It's just loving throughout all odds.
A part of it, be a part of it. Psyche is beautiful, wonderful, fanciful, magical, visceral, skeptical.
That's a major theme in this play, is trust. And Psyche has trouble trusting that Cupid really is in love with her because she can't see him, and you know, you have to see to believe. It's kind of that whole concept, and I find myself victim of that a lot of the time, and sometimes you just gotta trust and know that things will fall together how they're supposed to.
She's vain, but also kind of insecure, like the evil queen from Snow White, which is cool. We all know what happens, but then at the end, she still like has that insecurity and like fear of aging that I think everyone has, that I can definitely relate to.
Love is quite an obvious theme, and then whether or not to believe stories. You know, it's kind of the big fish concept that is mentioned in the show. At what point do you say that it's just a fairy tale and has nothing to do with reality?
You left all you know. One brings true love. Could I your true love?
Now come to fruition with this beautiful musical, Gods and Mortals, based on the story of Cupid, Psyche, and Cupid's mother, Venus. And thankfully we had a wonderful audience of about 60 people who gave us lots of critique and lots of, wow, it was great. And we can now take that critique and move forward and write something even more beautiful.
I was only known as Miss Persephone. You came along.
And in our show, Persephone is kind of like cabaret, funny, wacky person, and then the counterpart in the museum is Patricia. So as the musical is right now, there's a museum section in 1942, and there's all the like patrons of the museum, and then their counterparts are in the Greek myth. So Patricia is like a southern person with her hubby and asking lots of questions and being generally entertaining. And then when she comes Persephone, she's got a big giant personality. She rules the underworld.
The short straw was drawn. Thus my life began as Zeus's pawn.
Hades is kind of like Zeus's pawn down in the underworld, sort of overseeing things down there. He and his wife's Persephone are sort of the co-rulers down there, and she pretty much rules when she's there, and then, you know, they split the difference when, you know, he's there, he rules by himself and stuff like that. But they have a fun play between the two of them, and my connection to that sense is I love the mischief and the play behind love and relationships and life and stuff like that, in the regards that there's a sweetness to a power struggle, but not a seriousness to it, in the sense that you can have that kind of gentle play between two people who are interested in power, but then you see the connection between them, and I love that way that kind of went through in the makings of it too.
Under our roof you've entered the world of dead, and the undead creepy away.
My favorite part of the show is the part where I get to be ridiculous in a red corset and do a little cabaret number as the goddess of the underworld with my hubby Hades. It's the part in the show that's really light and fun, and I love that because generally everything's very like beautiful and grand and whatever, and then we come in and mess the place up and leave, which is the best.
Well, what do you want? Only our soul! I'm just kidding.
Paul has done an incredible job with the music, and honestly, to sit there, even with anything else not happening, it's still just a treat to the ears. But I think a lot of the ballads have just a sweet way of giving messages out. I love particularly the I Want You ballad that's done with Cupid and Psyche. I think it just has a very sweet melody line and just a really gorgeous way of communicating a very basic human desire of like wanting somebody and not necessarily being able to articulate as, you know, eloquently as like Shakespeare would. It's just the I want this, and there's something that's subtle and perfect about that, I think.
Scene 17. Mount Olympus. Cupid sits alone atop the mountain as the storm begins to form.
So Paul came to me years ago and said, listen, I want to write a musical and I don't want to do it with anyone else but you. And I said, you are crazy. You are cray-cray. You need to go find someone who is just as brilliant as you are. Because obviously, if you haven't heard Paul's music lately, you need to get on Google. His music, his composition is brilliant. And here's the thing. When it comes to writing a musical, no musical is going to be a success without great music. So
yeah, it's about music, but
I can throw in some some dialogue and some lyrics, but without great music, the whole thing gets flushed down the drain.
When I met Todd and I found out he writes, sings, dances, acts, produces, like wow, what better person than to like try this first time venture out into musical theater? And so I don't know what I'm doing, but he helps to guide me in.
Well, he knows what he's doing when it comes to music.
Yeah, I know good music, so that's my input into this project.
What is it like being human? To be a boy, to be a man, to dream that love comes only once.
The perseverance of love through difficult times. In the museum, they touch on myth and what that means, and true myth versus psychological myth versus saga myth. But I think thematically, it's about love conquering all odds, and this myth's just one example of it.
I'm connected to all of these characters. As the book writer and as the lyricist, I'm constantly putting myself in the place of those characters and how they're feeling in that moment. So I've always sat there and tried to sit with Paul and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling at this moment. This is what's going on in the story. How can we make the story move forward? I didn't want to be stagnant with anything that we were doing in the show. So for me, I would become that character, whether it was Cupid or Psyche or
Hades or Persephone.
Right. So of all the 10 characters that we have in the show, I would step into that character based on where they were in the script, because I want to be true to the character and what they're feeling, but also tell a great story.
So that's our story.
That's the story, and we're sticking to it.
We're sticking by it.
Yeah.